NBS Frontline.
In the 1990s, the Pearl of Africa stood tall for women emancipation as Dr. Specioza Wanderakazigwe was appointed vice president, making her the first female to hold such a position in a sovereign nation. The fight to get women from the kitchen and put their destiny in their hands did not stop there. Affirmative action was duly accorded, and every district given a woman representative in parliament. To date, Uganda boasts a sizable proportion of women in leadership, from the cabinet to the legislature and the judiciary. To some, however, these efforts have not fully delivered the emancipation dream. NGOs and women's rights activists continue with the fight for equity and equality. While this year's Women's Day celebrations were happening away in Chiruhura, many women went about their usual business of fending for their families, while others took to the streets to express their disconnect with the plight of women in Uganda.
We want justice! We are women!
What is the source of the disconnect? Did the government backslide on its commitment to gender equality, or have the women become apathetic to current efforts towards women empowerment? But yet again, how exemplary have women in leadership been? Have the beneficiaries of women empowerment attempted to uplift fellow women, or simply used the opportunity to entrench themselves and buttress the forces of oppression that hold Ugandan women down? What should be done to steer the women emancipation effort towards an outcome that works for all? This is The Front.
NBS Frontline.
A very good evening and welcome to this edition of the NBS Frontline. My name is Charles Wangushampagi. It's been a tough week in many respects, but also a week of celebration as we marked International Women's Day. Let's start with a bit of the bad news before I introduce my panel, and then which is, of course, we lost in the week one of the, I don't know how to describe him, but an activist before he joined the bench, one of the most sober judges, one of the most humble judges, one of the most forthright, Justice Kenneth Kakuru, passed on at a hospital in Nairobi, and I think his burial is going to be around the weekend, on Saturday. Justice Kenneth Kakuru, I first met him in his activism days when we were discussing the Access to Information Act legislation. Then he was a lawyer. Then we also lost a man many would hate to love or love to hate, John Nagenda, who was a senior presidential advisor on media relations. I think the very few Ugandans that are gifted in writing, as John Nagenda was, to him you would add someone like the late Austin Ejiet. He passed on so many years ago, and then the others would fit in somewhere there. But really, really gifted writers that we have lost. John Nagenda was one of them. He died at a fairly advanced age of 84. Justice Kakuru died much younger. So let me introduce the panel, and I'll ask each one of them to make a short comment about those two gentlemen and any other people, any other Ugandans that might have lost their lives over the last week that we should pay attention to. So let me introduce the frontliner, former leader of opposition in Parliament, the Honorable Winnie Kiza. She represented the people of Kasese district in Parliament, and she is a member and a senior official with the Alliance for National Transformation. Very nice to have you.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
I
want to wish all Ugandans a happy Women's Month, and I want to convey my heartfelt condolences to all the families of those who have lost dear ones, especially the family of Justice Kakuru. Like all Ugandans know, we went to court to defend the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, and Kakuru emerged as the only judge who stood with the people of Uganda. I think we have lost him. We have lost a sober judge. We have lost a human rights activist. We have lost an activist in the fight for women's rights. May you rest well, Justice Kakulu.
Let me introduce the Honorable Lydia Wanyoto. She sits on the National Resistance Movement Central Executive Committee, representing women. Very nice to have you.
Thank you, Charles. I'm Lydia Wanyoto Mutende.
Yes.
I come from Mbale City. I would like to greet our listeners and viewers that good evening. I would like to join my sister Winnie and Flavia Karule here to pay my respects and tribute to Justice Kenneth Kakulu. I think I was honored to know him as a senior person in our government, but also as a friend. One time I was in Mbarara doing some work, mobilization work, and I found out that he's a very senior member of the church. So to the Cathedral of Mbarara and the Christians of Mbarara, I also send my condolences, because I think he was the head of the laity. It's very rare that you find somebody so deep in the church work and also in the profession as a lawyer. And also I'd met him in many ways during the work on the environment. He was very passionate about the environment. So in many of the forums I crossed, I met him to be of upstanding person and very admirable in character, but also consistent in his professional work and outlook to life and people. So I would like to request the Almighty God to rest his soul in eternal peace that he deserves. And to his family, the young family, I also send my condolences, and friends and the judiciary. I'd also like to, I knew Nagenda, of course, through the New Vision column and in many forums. He was a friend of the diplomatic community in Uganda. There is no function, mainly in the diplomatic circles, that you would not find Mzee Nagenda, and very highly respected with his comments, like you've said. I think he was also some level of a Muzungu in an African skin. Very good English. You'd have to go back and check in the dictionary sometimes of the words used, but also very familiar with a lot of Commonwealth stuff, the history, ideology of the Commonwealth, and the history of our country, especially the Uganda. He had a very good command of our history and understanding. Finally, I would like to continue wishing all the women of Uganda and the world a happy Women's Month. Yesterday was International Women's Day, but we've dedicated the month of March so that we are able to reflect, take stock, and see how much we can help or work together as women to advance our cause, but also help and lift others that are yet to reach our level or even better. I therefore want to wish all the women in the world, in Uganda, in our communities, the rural women, a happy Women's Month, and to be able to confront together what bedevils women and what stands in the way to their development. Thank you.
Honorable Nyoto didn't say that she has had a few tours of duty for the country beyond the borders of this country. Over the years at the East African Legislative Assembly, you have served elsewhere with the mission that we've been having in Somalia.
You didn't ask me.
And many other things. But we'll pack those
We
for
haven't
now.
come to give our CVs, I hope. We've come to talk about women. But thank you. I'm honored, yes.
Thank you. And you talked about Nagenda. If you called Nagenda to seek a comment from him, he would not only give you a comment, but he would want you not only to quote him accurately, but get to understand the language he used, the English he used.
He would take you through, he would school you through the process.
Yes, a fine gentleman
Yes,
to many people. He tipped off so many people, but he also made many people love to read him. Let me also
He was the take it or leave it kind of person, like you said, Professor Jet.
Jet, yes.
Who was also my lecturer at Makerere at one time. He saw rest in eternal peace as well.
Let me also introduce the Honorable Flavia Nabagabe Kalule, woman member of parliament for Kasanda district. She chairs the National Unity Platform Women's League. Very nice to have you.
Thank you very much, Charles, and good evening, viewers. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I want to add my voice to my sisters and wish all the women of this country a very happy Women's Month. Yesterday was the Women's Day, internationally recognized, and it was a day that brought forth so much to light. It's a day for us. This month is a month where we shine a torch on several issues of the women in their lives, in the public and the private spaces, both combined. And it's a month where, much as we elevate women, we also look at that belittles them and demotivates them and pulls them down. I want to add my voice to my sisters also to condole with the family of Ugandans and the world at large that have lost two great men in their different capacities. First, I remember, I think, Justice Kakuru is a remarkable man, and I think for me, I remember him very much in the court case of the presidential elections, where he had to make a ruling, outstanding ruling, saying that it was illegal, saying that it wasn't consultative enough, saying that a lot had happened in that presidential election and that it wasn't right. To find a justice, a judge at that level speaking against a government and airing out without fear their concerns, their voice, and putting it on record that an election was illegal because of the different irregularities therein. I think for me, in this day and era which we are in, where all the different arms of government are on trial and are being tested every day, and especially the judiciary, I think for me that is a man that we need to commend greatly for a job well done. And we are definitely going to miss him in this country and his governance, way of governance. So may his soul rest in peace.
Thank you. One of his most outstanding rulings was on that, like Honorable Winnie said, the lifting of age limit. The age limit. Which Parliament passed and was challenged. And then the judges of the Constitutional Court had to retreat to Mbale to deliver that verdict, which was quite controversial. Rest in peace, Justice Kakuru. I wrote yesterday on Twitter and said, rest in power, and some people were asking, what do you mean rest in power? Which power? People were asking what that means. But if someone has done some outstanding things. We're talking Women's Month. And to be as to let the lady panelists here, by and large, lead this discussion. I want to start with you, Honorable Flavia Nabagabe. I was making my way here, and I had a chat with one of the ardent viewers of this show. And he said, isn't it time we begin discussing parity in representation, given that women are more than men by a factor of 2%, 49 to 51%. Says, isn't it time we started discussing parity rather than affirmative action for women? And I asked, we've been running affirmative action since anyone remembers, starting from the Beijing Conference of 1985, and discussions that happened before that, from the entry into power of the National Resistance Movement, and a special seat for women at every elective position. The big question is, what have you women leaders, how much impact have you had on the women before we talk about parity?
Okay, thank you very much, Charles. And really, I want to appreciate this. Now, while we are celebrating, and we are still celebrating women in this month and uplifting them and appreciating them for the tremendous work and role that they are providing in their various sectors, both from the rural level and the urban level, in all the different categories that women are in, because women are not homogeneous. I want to look and first reflect on the women that were arrested yesterday. The young women that were arrested yesterday. The ones who attempted to do a demonstration. Yes, that attempted to do a peaceful demonstration from the National Unity Platform, but there were a number of women there. There were market women in there. There were women that had lost their spouses in there. There are women whose spouses are still in prison and whose spouses were abducted, that were questioning why celebrate the Women's Day. What is there to celebrate? What is the purpose of this day? Because much as this day celebrates, as the word mentions it, International Women's Day, it also reflects on the negativities, on the things that hold us bound, the things that stifle us and our very existence. So for the police, Uganda police, to come out and arrest them, the way they were mishandled, and arrest them for simply voicing their pain, because they were simply talking about what they feel. They are simply talking about the injustice.
They were holding an illegal assembly, as the police said.
they were talking about the injustices, whether it was illegal or not. I know that the Constitution of Uganda in Chapter 4 provides for the freedom of assembly and the freedom of demonstrating and voicing your concerns and expressions.
The Constitution of the Republic of Uganda also says you, where you sit in Parliament shall make laws to regulate the enjoyment of those rights.
Very true.
And Parliament passed the Public Order Management Act.
Which Public Order Management Act was repealed because we said that there is nothing like consulting the police over anything. We have to simply inform the police, and they were informed. And so that isn't reason enough to hold women on their very day, which we are celebrating, to hinder them from voicing their concerns. Our sisters are still at CPS. They've been denied the opportunity to be taken to court, so we couldn't even see them today. They all are the Secretary General, our lawyers, a number of other supporters. They were there and were waiting for them to go into court. But now we are moving into beyond 48 hours for them without appearing.
How many women are in detention, in police custody?
I am very much aware of about 12 women that are there today. And I know that these are just a few of, these are the recent ones. But we know that there are a number of other women. For example, we have a young girl called Olivia Lutaya that has been held at Luzira prison for a very long time right now. But she was, you know, her only crime was supporting Honorable Robert Chagulanyi. She was arrested during the presidential elections. Up to now,
she has never been charged?
She has never been charged. She's among the group of men that they constantly bring to the court-martial in Machinde. She's the only woman there. Olivia Lutaya has 2 children who need her as a mother. She doesn't have anyone to look after these children, and a number of so many other young women. I know of a young woman who is in Kigo, also held up that side. So you see, we have all these injustices coming up, and that creates the questions on how are women in leadership helping? How are they being impactful to ordinary women?
Yes, that's the question I put to you.
That's the question you put for me, and I think that for me that is the biggest question of today. So I just want to bring to light these statistics, and I think this is a question for all of us to look at and ask ourselves how we are helping and guiding the country. Despite the progress that is being made, because yes, my sister here, Honorable Lydia, will come and tell you how we have a very gender-sensitive constitution.
She hasn't said yet.
No, I'm saying she will come. I didn't say she has said. I said she will, or she may say it. No, I don't want to, but I know that those are usually the first things we start with whenever we are talking about gender questions, and how we have very gender-sensitive laws and a number of things. But look at this. 1 in 3 women worldwide has ever experienced sexual gender-based violence. And that is still a challenge that we are still all fighting with. Currently, we have online violence, cyberbullying, cyber harassment that is busy, you know, especially geared towards the young women and girls.
We'll talk about the challenges that women face. I put a question to you. We started with talking about parity in representation.
Yes.
And I said there's been affirmative action for the last so many years.
Yeah.
How have you utilized that space to impact the woman?
And that's where I was coming, because when I talk about parity in the and the numbers that we have, yes, currently Uganda boasts of a number of women in high leadership positions. For example, okay, I know that in Parliament, the Parliament of, we are a Parliament of 520...
27 elected?
Yes, women members of Parliament, but we have 144 of these who are women, but out of these we have about 19 who are directly elected members of Parliament. So you find that if we didn't have the affirmative action therein, we would have very few women in the positions of Parliament currently.
How are the 140 impacting?
The ones, I think for them they are doing tremendous work in their roles, and you have to look at them individually. I don't want to speak for them in a blanket form, because I know of some women that have had minimal impact, but I also know of women that have had great impact on women. For example,
let's put this debate. I'll come back to you, Honorable Nabagaba, in a moment. Lydia, I need to put it to you. 140 women represent in Parliament. 19 of them, as she says, directly elected members. Actually, 140, shouldn't it be a little bit more because of the number of districts? It should be more than that.
Are 146.
146. That means 146 women members of Parliament on the affirmative action ticket. If 19 are directly elected, That means you're talking about 160, no, 165?
Actually, there are like around 184 women
Yes.
who are in parliament currently when you add on
You add on ex-official members.
the ex-official
Yes.
members.
Ex-officials.
So 180, close to 200 women represented in parliament. Are the women in positions of leadership articulating the concern of the Ugandan woman? Are they, over the last, because every parliament has had representation, every elective position has a quota for women, is the voice of the Ugandan woman articulated in a way that it ought to be?
Thank you, Charles, for the question. You've begun with the parliament. So let me begin with something about parliament.
Parliament has the megaphone for the country.
Yes. And let me also just say something about the parliament. Recently, a few weeks ago, the Right Honorable Speaker, Anita Among, held a meeting for only women members of parliament at Hotel Africana. I thought that was a very important agenda because we have a woman who leads the legislature, the Right Honorable Speaker. And in her own wisdom, she brought all the women together across the political divide. All of them went to Africana. They discussed issues that affect women. And she made, of course, commitments to support them using her space and time. And I think that on that one, she was able to step up the campaign, that it is important to use the numbers you're raising about 100 women in parliament. And if we can leverage the legislature by her leadership, we'll be able to actually confront and deal with all other issues that bedevil, that are challenging, that we have gaps in terms of leadership for women. So those are the numbers. But let me just talk about my sister here, Honorable Flavia Karule. Flavia is a daughter of a very cherished member of the NRM. May her soul rest in peace. Her mother was another DC of Mubende. And we are proud of her as women leaders of NRM because she has a right to belong to a political calling or ideology. But the history speaks for itself that she was born to a mother that worked for government as an RDC. And I think your mother, because of her position in government, made a contribution for your school, for bringing up. And today, you're a member of parliament. It does not matter what political space you occupy or party, but you're a leader in Uganda. Can you tell the example of Right Honorable Anita Among and mobilize all the women across the divide in your constituency or as a leader of the women in your political party for good, for public good? Because I am very saddened that a member of parliament, after that meeting in Hotel Africana, they can choose to mobilize vulnerable, weak, exposed women on 8th of March and tell them that to go and demonstrate. When she has a platform where she can advance the challenges of women that have the political shade, rightly so, in her political party. I am not, let me finish.
If the package of rights.
Let me finish.
Yes.
I'm a member of the NRM party, and I'm honored to be the leader of women of the NRM in Uganda. And most of this month, we've been mobilizing our women, first of all, to document the challenges they have, at least with government programs like the parish model, where have you reached, and trying to say, let's fill the information gap, and we call members of parliament from their areas to see how we can work together. It is not fair to be a VIP in Uganda. You are very well positioned. You have a leadership that is sensitive to the needs of women, like Honorable Among has demonstrated. And then for you on Women's Day, for you are here, why weren't you not arrested? Why didn't you also demonstrate? Because you're a woman. So it is very unfair, in my humble opinion, to use the vulnerable We have important.
Is it fair that the women attempted demonstration, which is allowed by the Constitution and the laws of Uganda, and they get arrested, and they haven't been produced in court? They are spending a second night in jail, in a prison cell?
Oh, that's a, you know, I'm a lawyer. That's a different matter. That's a matter of the law, 48 hours. But the spirit behind the demonstration is it's political.
What about the spirit behind the arrest?
And I think it is denial. You are denying responsibility. When actually in parliament where you sit, there is a semblance of the direction on how you can address women as leaders, not just belonging to the different political parties. So what are you going to tell Right Honorable Among the next time she calls a meeting for the women and see how you are going to chart the agenda for women?
I would simply tell her to listen to the voices of the women. What,
did you say that when you are in Hotel Africana?
But we always talk about
that. You have,
they were not
let me finish.
And
no, but they organized them to be arrested. They intended it, and the police maybe fell into their trap. You cannot run away, my sister Flavia, the daughter of Madame Karule, the former RDC. You cannot run away from responsibility. You are now a member of parliament. The system and the environment in Uganda and the legal framework in our country has allowed you to raise at a very early age of your life. The future is so open for you to lead women in Uganda. I actually expect you to call us, who are not in parliament, but we lead women, and we join hands to help fellow women in Uganda. We cannot expose women to security agencies to wear for selfish reasons, and then you come and the first thing you say on a talk show like this one. Women across the board, I mean, we use the same hospitals. You cannot go to Kasanga Health Center and they ask you for your FDC ticket card or the NRM card or NUP card. They will ask you, what's your problem? You say, I have a problem of gynecology, or my child is sick. They take you to a pediatrician or an obstetrician. So I think that we should raise above abusing fellow women who are vulnerable. Because we use the same roads, we use the same health facilities, especially for member of parliament. We are aware that this was organized by NUP, female members of parliament, led by Madame Karle, who leads women. Why haven't you asked, actually after here I'm going to parliament tomorrow, I'm going to look for the Right Honorable Speaker. Why didn't you ask for space on the floor of the House to debate or present the grievances of the women that you yesterday brought on the streets? Because it is you
Honorable
who bought T-shirts for them.
Before I come to Honorable
Make sure that they go and raise. You have the platform in Parliament.
Those are significant issues that Lydia is raising. Could you respond to them?
Yeah.
So you mobilize these women?
Definitely.
And some...
Thank you.
No.
Yes.
Definitely I have to respond to her. Because one, we don't mobilize women. Women mobilize themselves because of the pain they feel.
And those
whoever
women
is
exclude...
extremely uncomfortable
Hold it a moment. Those
by
women
whatever they are
exclude
going
the women,
through is the person that takes to the streets.
Those women who mobilize themselves exclude the women on this panel.
Now,
is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I will tell you something, Charles. Whenever we are working with women. Tomorrow, we have a Women's National Unity Platform Celebrations Day. But we are going to shine a torch on so many issues. Now, we have different wings within our political party. We have different women that work with our political parties. Now, if women decide to organize themselves, because I am not the alpha and omega of women of Uganda, I command and I lead the women of Uganda of the National Unity Platform, but they also have a platform to express themselves as freely as they want. Now, I'm telling you something. Market women came together and they said, we have pain and we have a way of raising this. She's asking questions about why we have never raised this on the floor of parliament. The leader of opposition, who is the head of, who is the leader within my political party, has raised this a number of times. We have members of parliament, including myself,
her other question was,
on record for raising the issues those women were raising: torture, abductions.
Her other question was, why
arbitrary arrests,
why of the
illegal
dozen women,
detention.
Why of the dozen women in police cells? I know she also didn't account for the police. Why should the police arrest them? But she asked, why are the leaders not among that group, that these vulnerable women that you're talking about, the markets women, are the ones in police cells?
Because we have leaders in there. We have a youth wing leader. We have actually 4 youth wing leaders in there.
Cells. Why are you here?
No, let me tell you something. Whenever we are organizing, we always organize in different ways.
So that for you come here?
Not so that because we come here, because we have to have different roles that we play. And those people had pain, which pain I share, but I amplify in so many ways. Like right now where I am, because if we are all locked up in the cells, and we have been locked up, and I have been locked up on a number of occasions, I have protested, not once, not twice, not thrice. Activism is my life, and it has been my life, and that's why we are here. But people choose people choose activism on different terms and on different times.
Okay.
And I applaud those young women that chose to take to the streets, because they were voicing their concerns. Now, while I am organizing for a function for tomorrow, which is bringing together thousands of women in National Unity Platform, those are some of the issues we do. I know women of Kasese can also organize, and I always tell the women in NUP that you're free to do any activity that you want, as long as it brings peace to you and as long as it's within the law. Those women were very much in the law, and were not out of the law for them to demonstrate.
Let's bring in Honorable.
Who is on the streets is not the question. Why they are demonstrating is the question. And why they are being arrested should be answered. And why they are not being produced in courts should be the questions we need to raise and the answers we need to seek.
And Honorable why you are not there is also the question.
Winnie Kiza,
you should be there also.
Honorable Winnie Kiza, should the contest be on who should be in a police cell and who shouldn't? Have the elite women abandoned the ordinary woman?
You know, Charles, one thing that I think we are missing here is the reason why the women went to the streets. Exactly. If, for example, the women were going there to demand for their husbands who are arrested or their husbands who are being tortured, maybe Karule's husband was not among them.
She's their leader.
No, wait. Karule's husband was not among them. And now the question would have been, which husband of yours was tortured? It means the women went on their own violation.
She has failed them.
It couldn't. Is it Karule who tortured their husband? Is it Karule who arrested their husbands? Now let me tell you, Charles, there are so many things that happen to us in Uganda. And when you are talking about them, people tend to dress them with colors of political parties. I remember even when I was leader of the opposition in the Parliament of Uganda, Lydia, I talked and talked and talked and talked about the women of Kasese who were arrested. This is now 7 years. They have never been brought to court.
They're still in detention?
They are still in detention. We chose not to go to the streets. We chose to use the Parliament of Uganda. I personally went and even visited President Museveni to talk about the release of those women and the other prisoners who were arrested from Kasese after they had attacked the palace. Up to now, they have never gone to court. So if their relatives took to the streets, will you ask me, Winnie, why didn't you go to the streets with them? Because I played my role as a member of parliament. I gave the issues in parliament. I went to the president himself. He made pledges which he has never fulfilled. So if they went to the streets, would I be blamed for it, even as a leader? But anyway, going back to the question that you asked, that have the women in leadership uplifted their peers? I will say yes.
Or have they disconnected with the other women?
I will say the women in leadership have tried their best.
What is the best of the women?
The best that I'm talking about is that they have been in position to act as role models for their peers. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to hold my hand to get me to where I need to be. Sometimes your actions can take me to where I want to be. Sometimes by seeing how you gather the courage because of being in a position of influence, that can also lead to other women gathering the courage and getting to the center stage. Women in the political environment, for example, have come up with legislations that have supported women and have helped other women to rise. Talk about the many laws where they talked about now they are criminalizing the female genital mutilation, the Domestic Violence Act. They are still grappling with the marriage and divorce bill. But the women in parliament, when I still used to sit in parliament, ensured that the budget of health is increased to cater for the recruitment of nurses and most especially the midwives, so that women who get into hospitals can deliver with ease, can get help when they are giving birth, that can get people to attend to them. All these bring more women on board. Women in parliament, under the association of the Uganda Women Parliamentary Association, have advanced for a gender parity legislation. And I think that is one of the issues that the Honorable Lydia Wanyoto is talking about when she insists that the Honorable Anita Among Magogo called women to Africana specifically to let them understand that it's important to work together as women. The Honorable Kadaga did the same. I still remember Kadaga throwing out committees that had been brought without the inclusion of women as leaders, so that even in parliament, we can have the 30% composition in terms of chairs and deputy chairs of committees in parliament. And to me, this speaks volumes, that when a woman is in position of leadership, she will in one way or the other have a sister that she will support to ensure that she gets to a stage where all of us can be heard. And I would really concur with the person who asked you that, for how long are we going to talk about affirmative action? Some of us who have been in that parliament have been saying, you know, the affirmative action has been for too long. Secondly, you can't say that I'm weak. You're planning for me, and then you give me the bigger space. Women take on a district, while the men who are considered strong take on few sub-counties. So the issue has been, in this scenario, who is stronger and who is weak? Is it the women who are really having affirmative action, or it's the men? Because in this space, politics is becoming too expensive. And when you put a woman at a district level and is spending 3 times, 4 times, or even 5 times than the man who is in a constituency, you make it harder for them. So we are saying that if there is gender parity, we can even say each district should have 1 man and 1 woman.
1 woman.
And then we get it to that. Or each constituency 1 man and 1 woman. And then we get it to that. So that we know.
Agaba Ronald Bills is watching us. And Agaba, thank you so much for sharing the numbers. Actually, the official numbers, 188 women in parliament, 369 male MPs, for a total of 557. So thank you so much, Agaba Ronald Bills, for sharing those numbers. I have seen Sarah Kajingo here celebrating John Nagenda as a wordsmith who masterfully weaved a great tale, and may his soul rest in eternal peace. And Talibita Moses is in Kasusu Fort Portal. He says, Justice Kakuru was more of an environmental jurist than a democratic one. And he says he's most remembered for his lead judgment that protected the Tobacco Control Act, that jurisprudence and broader jurisprudence in environmental law. That's from Talibita Moses Arali in Kasusu. Please continue with your submission.
So to all of you watching us from wherever you are, I would like to say that we should all continue now airing out the voice of the plight of women and ensuring that we go gender parity. Gender
parity to achieve what purpose? Because one of the other issues you look out for is the legislature is led by a woman, and before her had been led by a woman for 10 years, in Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, for 10 years.
You are just singling out those 2 women.
Just a minute. The Prime Minister, the President's women.
After how many prime ministers who are men?
The Vice President?
Well, I'm saying if we had gender, we really thank government for giving us the Prime Minister, for giving us the Vice President, and also Parliament for ensuring that the Speaker is a woman. We really want to thank all those different bodies that have brought these women on the front line. But we need more. Why do I say we need more? The Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, first of all, Article 21 talks about gender parity, equality in terms of economics, equality in terms of political participation, equality in terms of social standing, and also Article 33 puts equality of women and men at par. So where we are still talking about affirmative action for now over 30 years, affirmative action, shall we never graduate from affirmative action?
The question is,
When
those
you
who have
have-
benefited from
when-
affirmative action,
Yes.
how much impact have they had on the ordinary woman in this country?
That is what I started with.
Yes.
That those who have benefited from affirmative action, the impact, you may not touch it. But the fact that you are seeing many more women coming up to get into political space, many more women getting up to start businesses, many more women going into the civil service, many more women deciding now to go into education, that speaks volumes.
Is it because of those positions, or it is because,
It's because
the numbers simply dictate that many more women are going to occupy these spaces, with or without the megaphone that I talked about that Parliament is, with 188 women, but the legislation that comes out of Parliament. You talked about the legislation on against female genital mutilation.
The Domestic Violence Act. Yes.
That was actually a bill, a private member's bill.
Yes, it was a private member's bill.
By Dr. Chris Baryomunsi, a male, not a female member
But
of
was
Parliament.
sponsored by UOPA.
Yes, it was sponsored by WOPA, but
Yes.
the leader on that was Dr. Chris Baryomunsi before he became a minister.
Actually, now that's where I'm coming, that when you have women, driving the agenda, men will come on board.
Yeah.
So that is why Chris...
Are women driving the agenda? That's the question.
Yes, because now women were driving that agenda under WOPA, and Chris, believing that women should be given a chance, decided to take on that. And spearheaded it in Parliament, brought it as a private member.
What private member bills that target focus on concerns of the women that have gone through Parliament, sponsored and driven by women members of
The
Parliament?
Domestic Violence Act, it was brought by women. The Sexual Offences Bill,
That is bad.
the trafficking in persons, it was
market
also
bill.
brought. The market bill,
market
they
act
were
of
brought by women, and
You're
many more.
talking in terms of bills. I'm looking for acts of Parliament. Let's take a break.
But
We'll pick this conversation
eventually,
up
some of
tomorrow.
them have
you see,
become
Yes.
acts.
Let me come in here. You keep saying we are talking about bills, but you need to understand the context in which women operate for us to be able to successfully have an act out. The negative cultural norms and practices and stereotypes and the highly patriarchal environment in which we operate cannot allow some of these critical bills that need to become laws that directly touch and reflect on women's actual lifestyles and the key issues that they go through. So you need to understand that there is a backlash at all times.
Of the women leaders to lobby, to influence?
Which we do, and
Yes,
the bills keep
and
bouncing back.
It's not enough.
Now, let
Let's
me tell
pick this
you,
conversation up.
we shall pick it from,
Let's
before
pick
we
this
even
conversation up.
pick it up from there, Charles. The issue is about the negative attitude and the stereotypes that still hold men in a cocoon. We still have a society that still believes...
When you have men in a cocoon, you'd
Yes.
be having them in a very good place.
The stereotypes that they have about women
Let's pick the conversation
and
up
their
after a very short
empowerment.
commercial break. We'll be right back.
NBS Frontline.
Get the most affordable 4G smartphone in Uganda from Airtel. Now heavily discounted from 250,000 shillings to 150,000 shillings only. Yes, 150,000 shillings only to keep you connected to your loved ones.
Dial *175*94# to activate free 1 GB instantly and 100% double data on all weekly and monthly bundles for 3 months. Get one today while stock lasts from the nearest Airtel shop. With Airtel, the smartphone network.
Today is a good day to draw up a new play. So start something. Make your move. and get in your groove. Do it for the gram. Do it for the culture. Be loud. Be extra. Be a thinker. A life eater. A Tusker light drinker. Start something. Turn on your lights. Tusker lights.
The annual Insurance Week is back. This week is dedicated to sensitizing and educating you on matters of insurance. The week brings together all licensed insurance players to physically interact with you so as to understand your insurance needs and serve you better. This week will start on Monday 6th to Thursday 9th of March 2023 at Railway Grounds in Kampala, and thereafter climaxed with Insurance Innovation Awards on Friday 10th March at Kampala Serena Hotel. The Insurance Week 2023 is organized by the Insurance Regulatory Authority of Uganda, IRA, in partnership with the Uganda Insurers Association, UIA, the Insurance Training College, ITC, and the Insurance Brokers Association of Uganda, IBAU. The Insurance Week 2023. Come and learn.
Miss Uganda 2023 finale. The wait is over. 470 contestants, 21 finalists, one big stage. Who will be the next beauty queen? The battle for the crown is on. This is the most beautiful showdown, the most unpredictable competition. Miss Uganda 2023 Grand Finale on March 18th, live on Makula TV at 8 p.m. only on Star Times. Miss Uganda 2023, beauty beyond looks.
Frontline.
You're still watching NBS Frontline, and an interesting debate on this very special edition of the Frontline when we celebrate Women's Month. The Women's Day, the single day marked out, which is a public holiday. The 8th of March was celebrated yesterday in Chiruhura. Very smart women in uniform leading the parade from the forces, the police, the UPDF, the prisons, and we're discussing with an all-female panel, apart from myself as the host. And there's an interesting debate that's been going on. The vulnerable women as opposed versus the non-vulnerable women. Who is providing that leadership and where the others being led? Lydia, you're trying to articulate this issue, talking about these vulnerable women. But should women, just let me put a question. After so many years of women activism, women empowerment, should we be talking in terms of this vulnerable group being used by this elite group to do ABCD? Doesn't the outstanding issue, from what Flavia Nabagabe raised. B, why in a democratic society, in a free society, you are a lawyer, why should they even be arrested for demonstrating?
Well, I think even the police fell into their trap. These are games that the Flavias make. She's a member of parliament for Kasanda. Them as members of parliament who are women have a direction how they are going to provide leadership to the country. But she chooses vulnerable, uninformed, exposed women, and they get into demonstrating, when ideally she should have been able to either hold a national meeting for women and take up their issues, or go to Kasanda. And I hope that people from Kasanda are watching
right?
us.
Isn't demonstration a constitutional right?
That demonstration was organized politically, populism by the Karures of parliament.
Did political organization make it
and I am saying, even tomorrow, you've said I'm a lawyer, yes. Even tomorrow, I would like to go with the Flavia and we look at the charges and find out why those women were arrested. But I know, because we are not fools, we have information. They organized as NUP, women leaders, to get their women who are vulnerable, get onto the streets, and they fall into the hands of security, which is very unfortunate.
But as a lawyer,
and even to Winnie, even to Winnie, let me say this. Winnie, let me say this. I don't like you shouting on front line, but Winnie, you gave an example of Kasese women. The challenge that my sisters you have is to close. You have been blinded to close every issue to make vulnerable women play your political games, and you make it a political issue. Why don't we meet as women? Profile the women in the prison, get to know what their charge sheet is, and make their case not necessarily political. And if you are their leaders, how come for them they are in prison because of the politics of supporting a political party, and for you, you are here in an air-conditioned talk show speaking for them? I want to repeat this, please. This government, with the 1995 Constitution, has given us an opportunity to up the game to support fellow women. Do not use women, do not play on their graves, do not play on their vulnerability. Do not make them go to prison, and for you come here being driven in an air-conditioned vehicle. That is not acceptable in the 21st century to women.
Charles.
I want to make that clear. But Charles, I forgot to, because you made us start with the parliament. Yes. Just to mention that the parade in Sanga in Mbarara was led by Lieutenant Colonel Evelyn Asimwe, very well trained, and she did a very good job, including the director of the women's department in the women's department in the UPDF, but Colonel Musuya, and then Asimwe is a lieutenant colonel. Even in the forces, we have been able to raise women leaders trained, and that they are now taking charge of command and control. For us in the politics, we are busy finding an illiterate woman, one who's struggling in a market. You give her 10,000, say, run to Bwaise, go and demonstrate, and then she falls into the hands of law and order. This country must have law and order. But I feel very pained when I see women from Bwaise, women from Nankulabye, women from all these places struggling to earn a living. You, Flavia, and your friends, you go and tell them to demonstrate. Lead the demonstration so that you can also be arrested, so that your VIP ends up. You have been given a forum and a platform, and you are busy organizing demonstrations.
Okay.
Why?
Okay. Let me respond.
Before you respond,
when you're a product of the NRM government, especially yourself.
Let me first say, Charles, that I feel equally pained that my sister, who should be defending the women of Uganda,
tomorrow,
at the place where she sits in the NRM, is finding every reason to cover every dirty act that the government does against women, and moreover on a Women's Day, and finds the reason to make it look like these women were just used and that they don't have an issue.
Is it fair on your side?
Let me tell you.
Is it fair on your side that you also cover every good thing that the NRM government has done for the women and only look out for the bad things?
By the way, look, let me tell you, I have talked about the bad thing, the good things that we have gained. I've talked about the gains and saying even with these gains, we still need more. Yesterday, The Honorable Nyakato Asanas of Hoima City was arrested with her women and the people of Hoima City. What did she do? She's organizing a tournament, and she said, I think I should kickstart this tournament on a Women's Day. The police was informed. She even erected tents at a playground and called women to come and celebrate with her the International Women's Day. What did the police do? To a sitting member of parliament who did not even demonstrate, but decided to go and have a football tournament and netball with her people, they were beaten up, the tents were brought down, public address systems plucked off and taken to police, confiscated by police. Was this a demonstration? And does this really mean that women are at liberty to continue celebrating their day? It is our day, and we use it the way you want. If you say the day is mine, you should also allow me to use it the way
Lydia will respond
I want.
to that.
Because if women decided to say we are using this day to voice our concerns, this is the only day we have to speak out about what is hurting us. By the way, that day, we use it to celebrate the gains that we have attained as women. And we also use it to speak out about what we think is still wrong and is still hindering the participation of women, and bringing down Article 22, which talks about non-discrimination of women in terms of race, in terms of tribe, and in terms of gender. It also now waters down the aspects of the provisions in the Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the CEDAW. So to us as a country who are state parties to this International Bill of Rights, there are certain things that we should not get caught up with. These women, the police had an option, by the way, of listening to them and said, okay, your concerns have been heard. Go back home, without manhandling them. Or they could have taken them to wherever they took them in the evening. They say, okay, you go back home. So we say that when everything is wrong, we don't have to just keep it in the open. I mean, under the carpet. You know, my sister Lydia here knows that I shouted. Women stood with me. If it's only you who never stood with me during the women of Kasese's arrest, then it is unfortunate. I took the matter to Parliament. After they had brought them from Kasese, naked, completely naked. They had beaten them, they had tortured them, and they brought them naked up to Jinja. It's the women in Parliament of Uganda, including NRMs, who contributed clothes that I took for the women in prison. With the women's movement, decided to hold prayers for them. So it didn't become a political matter. It became it became a matter of all women. So even for these women who were brutally manhandled yesterday, we should stand with them and condemn the act of the police in the strongest terms. Because they will do it to these women today. Tomorrow they will be coming for you if someone above you orders that you arrest Lydia. They will.
Okay.
So we need to ensure that the ground is leveled for all women, small and big, that the ground ensures growth of the women, and that all women can equally participate in all aspects of life, social, economic, political, and other ways. So to us who believe in a society that promotes the well-being of a woman, and that believes in gender equity and equality, we want to say that we still have a lot of work to do to ensure that this ordinary woman that Lydia is talking about is also
you know, we're asking about the scorecard.
Yes.
Don't use women for
this,
your own
that
advantage.
This woman whose voice is not heard is heard, and that also the state should protect all women and all Ugandans anyway, not only women, because these women were looking for their husbands. So if the women were talking about their missing husbands, their tortured husbands, their imprisoned husbands, this gives the women now a heavy burden of bringing up the children as single mothers when they are supposed to be wives of somebody, when they are supposed to be partners in relationships where they should bring up their children together. And so every aspect of life that puts the woman's life in danger should be condemned. And we should work towards eliminating these vices that make it hard for women to participate in terms of improving their economic welfare, in terms of enabling them to participate in the political space, and also in ensuring that socially they are accepted.
Honorable Nabagabe, you had a lot to respond to.
Yes.
So I want to put a question to you.
Our daughter.
You see, Lydia, you're just being petty.
No.
And you're simply vulgarizing.
Factual.
No,
it is
listen,
factual.
I listened to you when you are talking.
I have never
You're being petty and you're
factual.
simply vulgarizing this discussion. The key issue
Don't
at
abuse
hand
vulnerable
here
women. You were never abused.
Honorable,
should
when
every
you're talking-
vulnerable
no,
woman,
let her make a point.
should every vulnerable woman that rises up with a voice of dissent be arrested? Isn't it their legal right to demonstrate?
You mobilized it without your mobilization.
The key issue at hand, stop heckling. The key issue at hand here is every woman in Uganda, in this world, has a right to their voice. And how they choose to use that voice and the actions they choose to show their pain, their dissatisfaction, is entirely upon them. What is the constitutional right for the state to do? Should they be arresting every woman that chooses to demonstrate? Would it make any difference if I got arrested? Would the women of Uganda suddenly be free, and all the tortured husbands and abducted husbands that for months, for a whole year, since we came out of an election, Parliament has been raising, the opposition has been raising, the leader of opposition has raised a number of times. I sit on the Committee of Human Rights. We have raised these issues a number of times. We've used all the spaces. Someone says, Audrey Law is the one who says that the weapons of the powerful, of the powerless, will never be understood by the powerful. A woman like her, who is seated in a comfortable position in the ruling government, that has worked to dishearten, to dismantle, to ensure that all Ugandan women are now in a what is it called? We are busy. Because we are shifting ground right now. So Ugandan women are also being used in a system of patronage by her very government that has denied them and robbed them of their lives, of the right to food, the right to live well, the right to enjoy their freedoms. A comfortable woman like her will never understand why women take to the streets and demonstrate the way they demonstrate in the whichever way they do. Now, this issue of shifting blame all the time, shifting blame and forgetting the key issues as to why people choose to demonstrate, that needs to be dealt with. Because one, I am looking, she's talking about my parents, my mother. Yes, I am a daughter of Anara DC, who died in 2016. Before I even thought and ever dreamt of becoming a member of parliament. But the environment she worked in and the work I saw her doing
made you an MP.
Did not make me an MP, but it inspired me to fight for women's rights. That work that she used to do with women in villages is the work that enabled me to, be able to speak for women's voices and concerns. But that does not mean that simply because she worked with the NRM, I need to be in the NRM, and so I need to be entailed on the NRM. How many people have we seen that have left the NRM because of the injustices, the social injustices, because of the corruption in NRM, because of all the wrong things they see in NRM? For her to still be in the NRM is actually a question. Because that means that she's so comfortable and deaf and silent to the needs of Ugandan women that are suffering. And that is why we come out to oppose. That is why we come out to give alternative views. Now, should I be arrested by every woman? I have been arrested a number of times on different crimes. Did I need to be arrested today? No, I didn't need to. Because I have already used all the platforms I needed to use.
Honorable Nabagabe, are women's problems just about the politics?
And you see, we always say that the private is public. Because women's issues, much as they are in a private setting and in a private space, as long as they encompass their livelihoods, they threaten the livelihoods of their children, they threaten the livelihoods of their economic earning and living, they cease to be private, and therefore they become public issues. Now, those critical issues, we keep saying that women's concerns are political issues. Why? Because when a woman stands up to defend her husband who was arrested, her husband who was tortured, her husband who was abducted, her husband who was beaten senselessly and does not know what to do, the burden falls on her immediately. And definitely that becomes a political issue because it requires a political answer through the different political systems that we have.
Is politics answering those concerns?
Well, we have tried, and whether it's answering or not, it doesn't mean that we are going to keep quiet and be silent about it. We have to keep pushing.
What else do you think you can do?
We have used the platform. So we have used those platforms. We have already used our platform in Parliament. We have used international platforms. We have used platforms in court. We have used platforms within our spaces. I have mobilized women, and we have spoken, we have debated, we have used all the spaces you can think about, and even tomorrow we are highlighting these more.
Yes, let me put the question differently for you, Honorable Nabagabe. For a typical average woman in Kasanda, for a typical average woman in Terego, or a typical average woman in Rwanda, are you really communicating or speaking for them in what you've been saying?
Yes, I am.
What are you saying about their lives? They're detached from the politics. Yes, they participate in the politics, but that doesn't put bread and butter on their tables every year, on their whatever could be the equivalent of a dinner table. Doesn't put dinner on for their family.
I understand.
The woman in Rwanda has to struggle to make sure that she puts, and elsewhere in the country. When and how does that get articulated? Lydia was here commenting at the beginning, talking about questions about, for example, the parish development model. How are you using your platform in Parliament to negotiate for a slice of that for the women in Kasanda? Both whether they are NUP, FDC, ANT, PPP, NEED, NRM, or whatever formation that exists there. How are you using those platforms to empower women financially, health-wise, education-wise, so that they can come and give you the bigger voice that you need in the politics?
Charles, thank you. You're asking a very critical question, and that is where this debate was supposed to have headed, had she not diverted it and made it so petty and personalized it with examples of my mother. But anyway, I'll tell you this. I see women every day. Everything we do, including some of those demonstrations, because we demonstrate on a number of issues. Today, the topic at hand, and because the women that were arrested were demonstrating over torture, we have demonstrated over high fuel, over high prices of commodities. As women of NUP,
you and I had a discussion on this in this studio about that sometime back.
Exactly.
I remember.
Yes. There are so many platforms we have used on different issues that you work on, but I work, and I'm privileged to work with women, councillors, women MPs, local ordinary women in the markets that we have impacted. We have taught on how to make better their businesses. We have encouraged, we have supported their businesses by showing them the laws, by teaching them the laws, by enabling them, networking for them and creating markets for them. I see women every day in their communities who are helping women to know how to sew sanitary pads so that the women and girls can be able to move on with their lives and be able to attain an education for the young girl who lacks that pad and has dropped out of school.
You saw a Kenyan member of parliament who demonstrated over.
Sorry?
You saw the Kenyan member of parliament who
I have seen
was
women every day trying to make sure that they are advocating for domestic violence to end through the domestic violence law. I know that every 3 seconds that we sit here, there's a young woman under 18 years that is getting married off. But I have seen so many women, including myself, that have spoken about teenage marriages, that have spoken about teenage pregnancies. COVID hit us so badly. So for me, I think, Charles, much as we have so much against us, working the backlash against women empowerment, I think women every day are struggling to connect to the ordinary woman. Every day I struggle to connect to the ordinary woman in Kasanda district. I sit with them, I listen to their pain. Now, they have pain and they keep asking us about some of these national concerns. Now, when we come at a platform where we are national...
What are the key national concerns?
Key national issues. Women's issues are very national. For example, when you look at the torture...
I'm talking about the national concerns that your women in Kasanda, in a market setting...
Exactly.
In their groups, where they save credit and savings groups. What are those national concerns that you can uplift from Kasanda, bring to the national level, and have and engage the country in a discussion like we're having today?
And we have tried. One, for example, is there inaccessibility and limited resource envelope. Inaccessibility to loans in banks. For example, if you're a woman, it is extremely difficult for you to attain a loan, especially when you don't have the support and the back of your what? Of your husband. This evening I was speaking to a woman in Kasanda, but in order for me to access that woman about a national issue we were debating on, I was speaking with the LC5 Deputy Vice Chairperson of Kasanda, the Honorable Flavia, and I was telling her, no, she was actually asking, if you need to access women and we are in a digital era, is it really true that you have to access them, some women, through their husbands because they don't have funds, because they are not permitted to hold funds? And that's the reality we are living in. In order for you, we are talking about women empowerment.
Are they not
and how
permitted or they can't afford? Which is which? Are they not permitted or they can't afford?
Now, there are two things. There's affordability, and then there's also the patriarchy that you are talking about, that men still hold it dear, that a phone cannot be accessed and cannot be owned by a woman. And that because they believe that when a woman has a phone, that is the best way of fornicating, the best way of being taken, the best way of becoming empowered and you know, and very independent, that they'll stop relying on you. So we have so many men that have actually refused women from accessing funds and owning funds. But we are living in a digital era. How do you want her to expand her business and her work? I was talking to women back home and we are looking at the cost of health. The cost of health. What is the cost of health for a woman? First of all, it is extremely costly because a woman is the person that will do all the roles, the gender roles that require health. If you fell sick, Charles, if it's not your sister, your wife, or your mother, it's very rare that you find a brother and a father sleeping with you and taking care of you. In that hospital, it is the woman, but at what cost? The cost of her business, the cost of her other family. Now, we also go into the digitalization. So many people are looking at, you know, you go to health centers right now. I have health centers that are, one, extremely far from the women that are giving birth. I had 2 cases during the Ebola lockdown of women, 2 pregnant women that died along the way when they were trying to access a health facility. Now, those are the key issues that we talk about. And we pick those issues and bring them to the national level to be able to help that ordinary woman how we can be able to
sitting where you sit on the opposition side of parliament, facing the threats you face when you try to express yourself and the other women, the way you tried yesterday with the women in Kampala, the way Honorable Asinasi Nyakato tried. How do you think you can use your space to raise those same issues? Lydia was talking about lobbying them. She says she can lend her skills as a lawyer to look at the charge sheets for those women. How do you think? What other ways can you use when you're outnumbered, outgunned? As if I could borrow that expression.
The biggest thing we can use, and which we have already used anyway, because it's not a new practice, is to bring men on board.
Are you succeeding?
In some aspects we are. In some we are failing, especially the marriage and we don't want to call it the marriage and divorce bill anymore. It's now the marital relations bill, which we are trying to look at, because now it's a double-edged sword. When you're working with men, they usually choose to support you on things where they have the upper hand. The things that directly touch them at times, an example of marital rape. A man will ask you, how do I commit marital rape? I paid dowry for this woman. She is my wife. Whenever I need sex, I need to sleep with her. How do I seek for consent from her in order for me to have sex with her? Now, those are critical issues that don't want to be brought in a public sphere. But those are critical issues where we need to lobby men more. But the men will never be understanding to that because it directly targets them. And in one way or the other, it is in a way incriminating them. So it is very difficult, and that's the conversation we are having with the Honorable Winnie, that in a setting such as ours, where we are fighting societal constructs, where we are fighting negative cultural practices deeply embedded in our society, going years and years back into our forefathers, it is extremely to change, and it takes time. But we have moved the mileage that we now sit with these men and say, okay, on the issue of marital rape, where are you? On the issue of violence against a woman, you heard of a man who comfortably came out in parliament and said every woman needs to be beaten, that occasionally I would even beat my woman. And we also have women who keep saying that if I am not beaten, it means I'm not loved.
But I also hear a lot.
To change all that.
Do you think that sometimes you're talking about something important about activism? I mean, those women concerns that are unique to women. Does activism sometimes get blinded not to look at the other side of the coin? If a man says, I am married, how do I rape my own wife for wanting to enjoy conjugal rights with them? How much more study have you taken to study that, to understand that and say, what is the man exactly saying? How do we navigate around it? Achieve justice for the woman, protect the woman, but not be unreasonable to a marital relationship, because I think denial of conjugal rights is one of those grounds that can lead to a divorce.
Yeah,
so how do you navigate? How do you not avoid empowering the woman to use that as a weapon against the man? So if you're doing legislation, how do you navigate some of those very critically sensitive areas? But it's not just a cultural sensitivity.
Yeah, I understand. Yes. We set boundaries. We set conditions under which something can happen. For example, in that law, we are very clear where marital rape comes in. Your wife has just given birth. She hasn't even made 3 months yet, and already you're forcing her to have sex with you. We've spoken to women who have come to us bleeding, doctors saying women come back here bleeding because they've been forced to have sex when they have just had a child before they are well. Those are clear boundaries that everyone will see. And even you would simply say, no, at least give her 3 months. Give her some time for what? For recovery. Now that is very clear. We have set conditions of when your wife is sick, and you can see she's sick, and she has also told you she's sick. Because if I tell you that I am not well, Charles, I am not well. Now you need to be understanding. By the time, men forget, by the time they marry these women, they're actually friends. And they usually consult them on a number of issues. They talk about things, they discuss things. When they marry the women, the tables turn. You start making decisions alone. You're no longer involving your partner in decision making.
Some people say that when women get married, especially those who get wedded, the moment they get the ring, then they turn tables on men because they have reached a point of no return.
Well, for some few cases,
it's either way.
But by the time we come up with certain laws or certain proposals to certain legislation towards an issue or towards a concern that is, engaged in the community for a very long time, lingering there, we have already done studies on how that affects both people.
Thank you.
And we always consult both people to ensure
Let me come to Lydia on more or less the same issues. Lydia, there's no debate about the fact that women are a majority, but also constitute the most vulnerable gender segment in terms of they suffer higher levels of poverty, they suffer higher levels of dropout from school, they suffer higher levels of economic inequality with women is much higher compared to the men. Access to basics, health, education, the scales are tilted. If you move that conversation from the politics, where you are in the ruling party, a lot of initiatives undertaken, where do you move and get that space to discuss women unique issues? You talked about the example of the Speaker's Initiative yesterday. Good step. But how do you amplify those voices? When do you seek out? I hear you referring to each other as sisters. When do you reach out to Winnie? When do you reach out to Flavia to say, we have a challenge here with the women? And when you move that conversation and say, it shouldn't be a discussion by women about women, we should have the other gender on board. How do you reach out using the spaces that you have?
We have, let me begin by saying that my takeaway this evening is that we should not abuse the opportunity God has given us in our time but also the NRM government, to use it to, first of all, to degrade further or to dance on the vulnerability of women. That to me is my departure. In Uganda, of course I'm NRM, I'm a leader of the NRM party, but in Uganda, the challenges of women are the same. Women are not so much political. They just need basic needs. And that's why government programs cover all women. When I'm going to Kasanda, where Madame Flavia is a member of parliament, I do not ask for only NRM women. Because at the parish model, we've said have groups. You see? So I go there and they will tell you about their access to health. They'll tell you about their access to credit. And then we talk about whether they are receiving the money or not. In groups, we never talk about the colors. Colors come during elections. And that's why I am personally disturbed, and I hope our listeners also should be disturbed, that Flavia Karule, a member of parliament from Kasanda, can choose to come to the city here where women are hustling in the market spaces. They go on the roadside, the night industry on the roadside to sell things and say, look, here is 10,000, here is 5,000, go and demonstrate because you have grievances. Then why are we leaders? Why are we leaders if we cannot solve the grievances of the women that are vulnerable? I am a leader of the NRM. The challenges of women are insurmountable in Uganda. But when we go out there to mobilize women, we don't talk about colors. Women are women. They are Ugandans, and that's why we have a social contract in the country to lead everybody. And that's why she said that I'm being petty, but let listeners get facts. You cannot be brought up in the NRM government with affirmative action on your doorstep as women, and then you become a member of parliament, and you parade vulnerable women to be beaten or to be misunderstood. When you have the space, we have civil society organizations. Ask about spaces. Just this month, we have been able to launch the Interparty Women's Forum platform. Why? Because I am not DP, but we think that we use the political platform to see what is political and we support the women. I am available to support any woman, irrespective of the party colors, because majority of the Ugandan women are not even political. They have basic needs. They want to go to a health center. They want to have an education of their children, an education. They want some household incomes. They want to be in groups. Most of them are not in color.
So
it is you and me. I've talked about the majority. The majority of women, because of course you're on affirmative action in parliament, but Uganda has the 51% of Uganda's population are women. We are 45 million. So you cannot say that all of us should go to parliament or should be in politics. I am speaking as somebody that is in the community. Yesterday I was in Chiruhura. That lady in Chiruhura wants to know whether she has drugs for her cows so that she can milk, make ghee, or sell milk. But they also have challenges. I mean, there are problems even to do with the courts and arrests. Are you aware that we are dealing with so many women who borrowed money in a wrong way and they've been arrested because they've not been able to pay their loans? What the government has now done is to give them money through parish model activities so that they get away from money sharks. Many of the women in Uganda face arrests. Their land titles have been taken and stolen from their husband. There's been domestic violence because they were trying to survive. It's a survival issue. So my sisters, I want to beg you, do not. And let yesterday be the last time you use vulnerable women for your own political platform. It's not acceptable, it is inhuman, and it is wrong.
Honorable Onyoto,
and for Flavia, I must tell her that it's not petty. I'm stating a fact that we feel betrayed as women in NRM who brought her up. It is okay for her to be a member of parliament of NUP, but it's not okay for her to abuse the parliamentary position she has on vulnerable women in the city. It is not correct, and I have to say it. And going forward, Charles, because the Right Honourable Speaker, who is our leader as women in politics now, in parliament, she directed them by meeting them. I want her to call a meeting for what we call AAR. This one is a security thing. The action, after action review, AAR, to say, I commissioned you to go for Women's Day. we review, and she can invite us. I'll be happy to be invited to Parliament as an observer, so that in-house we tussle out either in a hotel or in a conference hall on how we are going to confront challenges that women face as women leaders. We should never abuse vulnerable women like Flavia and her colleagues have done. That is not acceptable. And for me, as a leader of women in Uganda, I'm going to take up this matter seriously. We cannot allow you to abuse vulnerable women who are struggling to put food on the table of their children, and you deny them a chance to participate in the parish development model campaign that is involving all women, irrespective of the religion, irrespective of their color. I'm saying this, these are facts. I am not being petty. Let people know the background from which you come from, and I don't want you come from a privileged background. Do not abuse vulnerable women. Give them a chance to also raise children, benefit from the NRM government, and we should come out and work. And Winnie, we have inter-party work. Let's work together. Call me, I call you. Let's be able to push. The problems of women are enormous. They are across borders. Majority of the Ghanaian women are not even political. They just want to survive. They want to have welfare.
Honorable Onyoto, two quick ones. Number one is, how do you feel that women, for simply demonstrating, end up in police cells?
That was unfortunate, because even me, I would have organized women I found who have challenges. Their children are out. I get the children or their husbands to demonstrate because they are in prison because of not paying up the loans, or there was domestic violence, or all these things. Because there are many women in prisons for some of these things other than their husbands being. I cannot tell women to go and demonstrate. I document and follow up and tell them do not demonstrate, because Flavia Kaule cannot say she leads more women than me. I have more numbers of women in the country. It's a given. And even for me, in the NRM, we have very clear SOPs, standard operational procedures. Whenever you go to the community, women are seen as women without colors. We are color blind when we are serving Ugandans. So I can, please take me to those women tomorrow.
No, you can just find them at CPS.
Yeah.
You don't need my permission.
And do not. And no, I think you are the one who has the list. I don't know them.
You don't have permission. They have
been presenting lists in the parliament. No, you give me the list.
They are always.
Give me the list.
Give you a list and you can visit
give
them.
me the list so that we stop this thuggery of abusing vulnerable women for political gain. Please, we join the politics as women to better the humanity of our country. We joined politics as women to do what men were doing worse. How can you be more brutal than our men? Then what difference have we come to make in the difference of people's lives?
So am I the one stealing the iron sheets?
No, we are now. Don't divert me. Don't divert me.
No, you're talking about thuggery, and I know
you be a good one.
And I know NRM is the leader of thuggery in this country. Am I the one arresting women, vulnerable women? Do I own a gun that arrests vulnerable women?
You pay them, you know.
Do I own anything that arrests vulnerable women?
Now she's heckling.
Your debate is very focused on very.
Because I am upset. Let me finish. When the speaker met these people,
I cannot allow you to simply do that.
No, don't heckle. There's a moderator here. When the speaker, you called me Peter Ikepko, that was an insult, by the way. I'm an English expert. Do not call me
because your debate
petty.
was actually very
No,
petty.
it is not. I've told that your mother was a leader. That's not petty.
So what?
Unless you want to deny a bit.
Well,
so
Honorable,
live by example.
Honorable Onyoto.
Let me conclude. Just 1 minute.
Just 1 minute. I am the moderator.
I know, but she's interfering, and you have not stopped her.
No. I did stop her.
Yes, she should
and I need to stop you. I think repeatedly referring to her mother, I think is unfair to her.
Who died in
because she's a liar.
No, she's a leader in her own right.
She's a privileged.
No, she's a leader in her own right.
Abusing privilege.
And as an adult, I think you need to engage.
Don't abuse privilege.
No, you need to address Flavia
we should be better
and the issues that we're raising.
It's very annoying.
And the issues we're raising. The bigger question to ask you is, yes, you've offered to say you're going to follow up with the women who are arrested.
Yes, even the ones of Kasese.
Yes, where are you placing their arrest beyond the political shades?
No, I don't know. We need to find out. Because for me, I was in Chiruhura. For her, she was stayed in the city and got vulnerable women to demonstrate, and they got into trouble with the law and order.
Charles,
yes.
I think this debate should not be allowed to continue centering about the women who are in prison, who have their own right, who are in their
No, we don't have those facts.
No, as citizens.
We don't have those
Lydia,
facts.
don't take away the right of these women to
You also don't
demonstrate.
have the facts.
Because they have
Did you
that
agree that will
right
not-
given to them
will allow
by the
people to debate
Constitution.
independent-
Please, I
sorry.
have been listening as you were talking. Give me the right to also articulate my issues.
On facts.
Now, if you had the facts also that it's Flavia who brought them on the streets,
She
can
did.
you also
She
give
has
those
not
facts?
denied.
Now, let me tell you, like Lydia, possibly, you know, when you become a member of parliament, you don't only become a member of parliament for your own constituency. You become a member of parliament for the country. That is why MPs, all of them, make the budget for the country and make laws that govern the country. Not every member of parliament will do laws for their specific constituencies. They are called members
a
of
fact.
They are
Where
called
are you?
members of parliament. So for you to keep saying, you know, you are from Kansanda, you came to mobilize the women of Kampala.
No, I was in Chirula. I don't come from
in
Chirula.
her right.
No, I was in Chirula.
Yes, you were in Chirula. You
I don't come from there, so that's
why-
not a point.
Can we
what
listen-
did-
can
you
we
have
listen to
been
another?
you have been saying it. You are from Kasanda. You came to mobilize women in the city, but
To
you have,
demonstrate.
you have also forgotten that she's the national chairperson
I've
of the
not
Women's
forgotten.
League of the National Unity
No, I've
Platform.
not forgotten.
And therefore, to
We should
that,
not abuse
she
our
becomes
positions.
a woman leader for the whole country.
We should not
It is
abuse
her duty.
Can we listen to
It is
another
her
honorable
duty to
Wanyoto?
ensure that the women, whether
Demonstrate.
NUP or not NUP, are
Yes, if they
receiving the
want
bare minimum that the country must give. But what I said, Charles, is that let not Lydia just zero the debate on the women
It
of
is not
yesterday,
me.
because that is
Please, Honorable
majority.
Lydia, allow other people to
These
debate.
women are just a representative of what is happening to many women in our society. Many women in our society. If the police came for us in parliament, by all standards, we don't look vulnerable anyway. Members of parliament didn't look vulnerable. But the police came for them during debate, and the women were beaten. Up to now, Nampoze still nurses wounds. The Honorable Angeline still nurses wounds. The Honorable Nabila still nurses wounds. We were in parliament at our place of duty. We were beaten by the police. What are you talking about, Lydia? These things are happening. We need to condemn them and let our police act in a manner that gives the woman their dignity.
Let's take a break. We'll pick this up in a
I
moment.
have to respond. Because you are mixed.
What MPs do not do. MPs do not construct or repair roads, bridges, hospitals, or schools in their constituencies. They also do not have to contribute to weddings, funerals, or pay school fees. MPs, as your elected officials, exist only to represent you in the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda. Your member of Parliament is your representative. Make your voice heard. This message is brought to you by the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda.
Work, work, work. Work's over. Busy Biter, get down to snack business. When snacking is under attack, we'll be there to fight back.
Paying your bills the old way.
Let's go, let's go. Just need to buy some power.
Paying your bills with the My Airtel app.
Bro, there's a line.
You have the power in your pocket. The power to instantly pay your bills hassle-free. Unlock that power with the My Airtel app. Visit the App Store or Google Play now.
Oh, you're back.
In the heart of Arua City is an oasis of class and comfort. Welcome to Hotel Le Confidential, Aruba's hidden gem and a hub of world-class service. Hotel Le Confidential is a boutique hotel like no other. Voted Uganda's best new hotel at the Ekuka Awards 2022. Our amazing rooms come with air conditioning for internet and breakfast. Take a dip in our outdoor pool, relax at the spa, enjoy a tasty bite from our wide array of delicacies, or simply spend an incredible evening here just to wake up to the gorgeous green of Aruba and so much more. We are open 24 hours to serve you. Hotel La Confidential, a place of serenity, peace, and love.
You will always know when you're in the presence of the finest. There's just something different, something unspoken, something intense, an allure so bold, a quest so rich. It's like time slows down, just enough for you to feel everything in full flavor.
Tusker Malt Lager, 100% malt. Alcohol is not for sober persons under 18. Please drink responsibly.
NBS Frontline.
You're still watching NBS Frontline. It is the real Frontline with an all-women panel, this special edition on celebrating Women's Month. We got stuck on the rights of the women and their vulnerability and who is mobilizing them and who's not mobilizing them. And we almost are losing an opportunity to celebrate the women of this country and what it means to be commemorating Women's Month. I want to come back to Winnie briefly. Are there things that we think deserve celebration, outstanding women across the country that deserve special recognition as we mark, or is Women's Month becoming another ritualistic public holiday that falls every March?
You know, in 2007, we decided that it was, I think, around 2006. It was again Women's Day. And by then we had gone into political parties. The FDC Women's League went with their banner at the national celebrations. And they said, we come here as FDC Women's League to celebrate with the women in the world. They were bundled up. They were stopped from coming with their banners to celebrate. But every time we have national celebrations of the Women's Day, many women, by the way, most especially those in the opposition, have stopped attending. Reason, because these celebrations have been too much politicized. They have ended up being yellow celebrations, and so those who don't subscribe to the yellow attire will find every reason not to be available. They have been vulgarized. But as women, we do celebrate the small gains that we have had, like I said at the beginning, that the provision in the Constitution which caters for a third of the women to be in leadership positions is one thing that we celebrate because it has opened up space for many women. And because of that provision in the Constitution, I said it again at the beginning that women have acted as mentors, they have acted as role models to the other women, and it has brought up women who have also studied some courses which were ordinarily looked at as courses for men. We now have women engineers, we have many young girls as doctors, and to me this speaks volumes. You heard the Honorable Lydia Wanyoto saying that yesterday the parade was by noble women who commanded the army.
Every Women's Day, the women in uniform.
Yes, we have a great team of women who are into business, and they are running their own businesses, they are running their own enterprises, though, like Honorable Flavia said, that they are doing it with difficulty. Many of them can't access credit. Many of our big men still think it's not fashionable to put girls in school, and therefore we still have a long way to work on the mindset. There are those whose attitude towards women leadership is still very low, so we also have to work on the attitude. That's why you will find that many of our women are not into the international bodies, because those appointing possibly don't think it is important for women to be into the international bodies as many as they should be, because we have very, very intelligent women. We have very, very qualified and capable women, but many of them have not been placed because the background from which we come still is of a woman cannot be as good as a man. But we are working on also these stereotypes and these social constructions that still put a woman at the edge. So as women who are into the limelight, we still feel it's our duty to continue speaking to power. Of course, challenging the government on issues that they have not yet done right. And I said that, yes, we appreciate the affirmative action that was given to women, a program that was to set women on a trajectory that would take them to the next level. But we also feel that we need to graduate from this because we have tested it, we have seen that it works, and when something works, you need to carry it forward. We have seen that when women are given positions of influence, they really use them. And that when women are given power, you will see results. So let's go to the next level and say in all departments of government.
Flavia was hinting at something I was trying actually to ignore for now. You have a national scandal. The president has joined in the debate and said, these are thieves, they should be arrested. What are you talking about? Investigation in parliament, investigation by the IG. The scandal around iron sheets for Karamoja, we only talk about iron sheets, not the goats. The iron sheets took, I mean, run ahead of the goats. But you have the scandal around iron sheets, and the key players are all women. What does it say?
It's not only women who are in the scandals of iron sheets.
Well,
it's both saying, women and men.
I'm saying those are at the head.
I think the reason why these are at the forefront because the one who was heading the distribution was a woman. It is the woman who was at the center of distribution, and I think she saw that women are more vulnerable in their constituencies, and therefore found a way of helping them to put off the burden.
Which women are those who are vulnerable?
Now, the ones you are talking about, the ones who think they are more vulnerable than the others. And now you know, my sister here was talking about vulnerable women. But now we look at the ones who are lifting the Mabati, they are not the vulnerable. And this Mabati is supposed to be for the vulnerable people in the community, the least privileged. So really it is very, very unfortunate that when we are also in positions of influence, we sometimes not use our power properly.
Thank you.
But we should not hold this on only women, because there are men who also took part of the share of the Mabati.
They were given by the women.
But for the vulnerable people. We should condemn all those who might have taken the Mabati in a wrong way. However, Charles, we need to also maybe find out maybe what is being investigated is whether this Mabati went for the vulnerable in their communities, because they could have taken the Mabati for the vulnerable in their communities. The only thing that is disheartening in this process is that only the ministers took Mabatis, which means if you are not a minister, many districts that have no ministers did not benefit from the iron sheets. And it doesn't surprise us that it is only ministers at a certain level. So not all ministers are beneficiaries. So even to me, who was a state
what
minister,
you say would be excusable, because given the vulnerability of Karamoja, I don't personally see an excuse that any other vulnerable communities elsewhere would benefit from what should have been for the people in Karamoja.
Yeah.
Honorable Lydia,
maybe before you go to Lydia,
yes,
vulnerability is vulnerability. And there are vulnerable people everywhere.
Yes.
I know that the iron sheets were meant for the vulnerable people in Karamoja. Maybe in the wisdom of the Prime Minister, she thought she had another way in which she was going to sort the people of Karamoja and said, let us spread out to the vulnerable people in the communities.
Don't you think they should have started with Karamoja and then any balance, any residue?
That is what I was coming to, that it looks funny that even the minister who is supposed to now be talking so high about the issues of the people of Karamoja is the one lifting the iron sheets from the people she's supposed to be speaking for and taking it to a different direction. So it is so unfortunate that a cabinet that is supposed to be caring for the people.
And the number of times the women
yes.
leaders, NSSF, the Mabati.
It is now the one that, it is now the one that the cabinet that is supposed to be thinking for the people is the one that is robbing people. And it hurts me most that it's not the vulnerable that are now stealing from government, but those who have the power.
Thank you. Flavia, I'll come to you in a moment. Let me spend a little bit of time with Lydia. Honorable Onyoto, my question is, what are those issues that are holding the women back? Number two, we're talking about Karamoja iron sheets. But it's something I hold very dear. The young Karamojan girls that we meet on the streets, for those who drive, roll up their windows because they don't want the inconvenience of these girls on the streets. It's a debate that's been running. You find fresh groups coming up. And when we're celebrating Women's Month, where is the concern for those young girls who will be women tomorrow? Many of them are carrying little babies. But the broader question for you is, what are those issues that have made it difficult for women to make that leap out of vulnerability?
You see, let me start from the 1995 Constitution. It was from the background of appreciating that women had been held back because of the historical cultural practices that would impinge on the rights of a girl child as opposed to the boy child in terms of going to school. And that's why we were able to have in place a third or 1.5 points for the girls to be able to attain higher education. So even if you have points, they would add you 1.5 so that you maybe join a tertiary institution or you join a higher course. And this explains why now we have a number of scientists. Yesterday in Chiruhula, we were able to celebrate some of the permanent secretaries who are experts in science. The one of Ministry of Energy is a scientist, engineer. The one of ICT is also an ICT expert. We have the one of Ministry of Health is a medical doctor. So that is the story that we should be able to profile women who have gone to school. So education, the capacity to have skills and education is one of those that have been holding women behind. And the NRM government was able to realize this. And in addition to having UPE, they added women 1.5 so that they are able to overcome the historical injustices that did not enable them to build skills and go to school. Because even at some point, in the past, they would ask you to get married so that the dowry is used to pay school fees for your brother so that for him he can attain an education. So we have been able to break the ceiling of skills building, of going to school because of the affirmative action and the programs of government. But in addition, now we can compete for jobs. I mean, the front line is an English talk show. We are not Bazungu, but because we went to school and English is an official language in our country, I would be speaking Lugisu, she's speaking Lukonjo, and she's speaking Luganda, and you speak Rutoro. But because we've gone to school, we are able to communicate, and that's also very important. We want to move to the next step. The theme of this year was talking about technology, science, and IT. Where we want to reach the virtual communication. That's where the world is, that's where development is, that's where the next revolution is. If you do a snapshot of our country, the bulk of the women in Uganda are not yet schooled or trained in competencies and skills that can enable them to do business, build efficiency, effectiveness, but also track their own business or capability. So we want IT to be affordable and accessible to the majority of our country who are women. And that is one of the issues that have been holding women back. They are not in the money economy. They are not literate enough. They are not competitive enough. They don't own property. And that's where our agenda should focus. And that's why it's a leadership issue, because it's a survival issue. If you have the bulk of your country off the money economy, the literacy levels are still very low, they are not participating in the decision-making processes, then we have a problem of development, because the biggest indicator of development is not oil, it's not roads, it is the people. And in Uganda, people means women. Why? Because women are the majority.
Yes, what is being done about it?
Well, I mean, this month alone should let you know that we are profiling where we have come from. I've just mentioned the achievements we've made and the positioning of women even in science and technology to become role models, but also to become experts and to be able to provide opportunities for the young girls. You've talked about the girls on the street.
From Karamoja.
From Karamoja specifically, I think they're from a district called Napak. That's the focus of all of us. There's a program under Ministry of Gender to even track where they come from and get them back to their communities. But those they cannot find their communities, they have been able to hold under the children's program, the National Children's, I think there's an authority, to care for them and make, it's continuous, it's a process, because there used to be very many, but over time the numbers have reduced, and it's a conversation on the table. We are able to speak it at policy level.
One day and you find the numbers are going up. You actually, from what you see, you think the numbers are increasing. When one day you think they've reduced a little bit, it's a block.
It is a process, and that's why you remember there was a very big debate between some piece of land in Chisenyi, but the intention of that land was to put up structures that would be holding grounds for street children. And you remember the mayor and the KCCA and then the Ministry of Gender, it was a big debate. So this is a process, it's ongoing, and I would like to say this, that it is for me, I am very passionate about vulnerable people, because we have an opportunity to change our society, especially women leaders.
We got to bring the short one end. Honorable Nabagave, the statistics that we got emerging out of COVID-19, the number of young girls who got pregnant during COVID-19, I don't know if anybody is still tracking them. We've just been receiving results. But for me, the core thing is the number of children who fall through the cracks before they reach an examinable level. P7, Senior 4, Senior 6. How much, I mean, what does that mean for the future of the struggle for women emancipation?
Thank you very much, Charles. Actually, definitely, this year's UNEB exams further shown a torch to the gap that has been created, especially in the education sector, between the boys and the girls. Because if I can just quote this, in 2022 UCE, we have the number of boys that registered and sat, 50.3%, in comparison to the 49.7% of the girls. So you can see that the gap is widening now.
And yet the girls, and yet women are more in number than the men.
And you see, at entry point in education, the girls are always more than the boys. But at completion rate, it's always the other way around. Why? Because the girls have so many challenges they are in that we keep highlighting. Of course, the forced marriages coming in by so many of our parents, where we always call upon them to stop forcing girls into marriages. Of course, we have the issue of the lack of sanitary towels. Most girls, that is a key issue. Whenever they are in their periods, they either opt to go out of school or they opt to look for so many other means that can help them get there, and so many others, including the poverty issues and all. But now, while we look at all this, we always say that educate a girl and educate a nation. That is not rhetoric. That is not just a saying. That is actually true. Because once you educate so many young girls, one, you're reducing on the higher they go, you're reducing on their levels of school dropout, but also you're reducing on their levels of being forced into marriages earlier. You're also helping to replicate the cycle. Because once you educate a girl and she knows the purpose of that and she has had benefits out of it, she's going to do it for another girl. She's going to do it for another young woman. So those are some of the things that we take pride in, but those are some of the things government needs to focus on, like those empty promises of girls being provided with sanitary towels in schools. I'm going to look at this issue as well, the issues that women in rural areas face. Some of them, including women dying while giving birth, and not just in rural areas, but it's more rampant and on a high end in rural areas in comparison to the urban areas. Some of these issues, it's the systems that are breaking them down. For example, look at Mulago Women's Hospital. Mulago Women's Hospital has some of the best technology in terms of maternal health in Uganda. Like they have an A hospital, but at how many people can afford it? Now, where the majority of women live, that kind of technology doesn't exist. The doctors are not getting paid in time. In places, I have been able to travel this country, almost all regions of Uganda, and some of the things I witnessed, for example, there's a story that just showed of people, a nurse that was trying very difficult, with great difficulty, to access a community to be able to take their health
to immunize
services,
them.
immunize. Now, so many of those are the majority. Exactly. So, and the health sector for us as women, that is where we get most affected, because I think 1 in 2 women will give birth at some point. Almost every woman is going to have to go to a maternal delivery facility. Do we have the delivery facilities? Do we have the nurses there? What are we doing as a country? The system. How much money are we investing in the health sector to be able to bridge some of those gaps?
The many questions that remain unanswered.
Exactly.
I'm afraid we need to
now,
bring this show to an end.
And while I conclude on this,
yes,
there's a key issue of vulnerability that has come up very strongly, of vulnerable women versus the elite women. I just want to pose a question to the viewers and the listeners, especially the supporters of the NRM government. We keep referring to women as vulnerable. Who has made these women vulnerable? And when will this vulnerability end?
Those are critical questions. We'll leave them hanging there. Our time is up. We need to get out of here. Thank you very much. The Honorable Flavia Nabagabe Kalule,